Have you ever found yourself in a place where people underestimated, where someone judged you with no knowledge of anything about who you are or the path you've walked? Imagining sitting in a courtroom, all eyes on you and the one man whose opinion could decide the rest of your life, based on dismissing you with a glance, with a smirk, with blatant arrogance. Now imagine the tables turning and suddenly it's your turn to make the choices. In a small town nested away, where time seemed to move more slowly than it should, a scene was being played out in a courthouse, one which nobody in the room that day would ever have reason to forget. It started as any other day in Judge Malcolm Granger's courtroom, orderly, controlled, predictable. The room was packed with people. Some were there out of a final hope for justice, others just marking the passage of time until they would get to live their ordinary lives. But there was one that would make this day unforgettable. In at the front of the courtroom, sat behind an elevated mahogany bench, was Judge Granger. His name preceded him. A man who had seen it all, or at least he thought so. His hair was a stark contrast of steel gray against dark mahogany paneling at his back. His face lined by years of stern-faced musings, narrowed eyes. He was a man of hard and fast ritual, of convictions in his head. Individuals who sat in the defendant's chair were typically guilty before they could say a word. Today would not be different, or at least so he thought. His narrowed eye lit upon the woman at defense table. She was calm, steady as stone, her back ramrod straight, her chin lifted, her name, Serena Mitchell. She wasn't flashy by no means. She wore a charcoal business suit, the kind that told her she was there to conduct business, not to create drama. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tidy no-nonsense bun, and her hand were resting softly in front of her. But it was something about being there, something not said, that disrupted the beat of Granger. Begged for mercy. No, this was the quiet, unsettling smile of someone who knew something that everyone else didn't, and it rattled Granger, although he tried hard not to exhibit it. The young prosecutor, a man who was only in his 30s by a hair's breadth, named Thomas Avery, cleared his throat. He was attempting to calm the tension that was starting to bubble in the room. "Your Honor, if I may," but interrupted Judge Granger with a dismissive wave of his hand. "We're not going to waste the court's time," he added, his voice heavy with contempt. "Miss Mitchell, why don't you enlighten us? Why do you think you're special?" Serena's voice was honey-controlled. "With all due respect, Your Honor," she said, her gaze unwavering. "I like to work with facts, not opinions." Her words blunt as they created an almost imperceptible ripple through the room. Granger's smirk flashed for an instant, then he leaned back as if settling in to watch a performance. "Facts is it," he said, repeating in taunting accents. "All right, Miss Mitchell, let's hear your facts." Serena shifted, then slowly delved on purpose. She reached into the inside pocket of her blazer. The bailiff, standing by the wall, stiffened, his hand accidentally resting on the butt of his holstered gun. Granger opened his mouth, prepared to spew out some sarcastic comment concerning situm decorum, and as she pulled out something small, black leather, the entire room appeared to be holding its breath. With meticulous care, she unopened the case. Inside was a badge, gleaming, unmistakable. But this was not any badge. It was the kind of badge that carried weight, that caused one to sit up. Special Agent Serena Mitchell, United States Secret Service. For a moment, nobody said anything. Nobody could. Granger's face blanched. His knuckles went white as he gripped the rim of his bench. Thomas Avery said goodbye, with a pin slipping from his fingers, clattering on the tabletop. The entire room, once full of stifled giggles and whispers, descended into absolute silence. Serena set the badge on the defense table before her, like a poker player laying down the winning hand. "My name," she said, her voice calm and steady, "is Special Agent Serena Mitchell, United States Secret Service." The burden of her words settled in air like heavy fog. For some long seconds, no one moved. Then came the desperate flutter of paper as Thomas Avery,